Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Colie. Today we are talking to 2016 Olympian Danielle Reedy. Danielle is going to share with us how she went from average girl to Olympian. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be great.
Yes, I almost said Olympic champion. I don't know if you're a champion or not. So I was like, oh.
I didn't win the medal, no, but I mean, you can still call me an Olympic champion.
In my eyes, you're a champion. I
Thank
always
you.
ask an icebreaker question prior to getting into it. So here's your icebreaker. Who was your idol or who is your idol?
Ooh. I think I've had many idols throughout my life. But if I'm going to think about like the first person that comes to mind, it's a bit corny, but it's my dad. My dad is just a wonderful human being, and he has a super inspirational story himself that I never really speak about. But my parents are immigrants from Australia to Canada, and my dad never finished high school. And, throughout his 20s, he ended up having 4 kids and putting himself through getting his GED, supporting kids, and then he started a business. And it's been really cool to see what he's created over his lifetime. And he's a really kind and generous person. And, he's just like, I'm definitely was a daddy's girl growing up, and he's just a wonderful human being. So I think he's a big role model in my life.
I love that. Oh my God. Yeah. That's awesome to hear. That is. And to hear his from where he came from to where he's gone and how it inspired you. That inspires me as a parent of older children. You know what I mean? Like, I love that. So talk about your background a little bit. Talk about like what made you an average girl.
So like I said, my parents are from Australia. I was born and raised in Canada, and I'm the youngest of 5 children. My siblings are quite a lot older than me, but same parents. And when I was 8 years old, I was thrown into this sport of synchronized swimming, which was a really good fit for me because I'm way too tall to be a gymnast. I'm 5'9", so I was always tall younger when I was younger. And swimming is like really boring. You just go back and forth. And so as a little girl, I got to be in this sport where I got to express myself to music. I got to work with a team, and I got to wear sparkly bathing suits and makeup, and I was sold. And after, a few years of getting into it, I really, really fell in love with it and kind of gave it my everything. However, my only problem is I just wasn't that good. Like, I was the girl that like had the great attitude, like was a good team player, but like was the least likely to succeed, was never the most valuable player, and never came first. And it's kind of like if you're in a team sport, everyone kind of knows who's the best and who's maybe at the back of the team, and that was me. But I think my attitude and my work ethic was always something that just made me continue to be part of these teams. And so when I got to grade 12 in high school, there was nowhere else for me to go, and I ended up retiring, I say in quotation marks, from sport at 18. And I thought that was the end of the line for me. I continued to stay involved for the next few years. I started coaching little girls how to do synchronized swimming, and I did it recreationally with some of my past teammates. And I was going to university. I was working a couple jobs, and I was also training and swimming just for fun, just to fill up my cup. And I went to a training session in 2013 where we were practicing highlights. Highlights in synchronized swimming is when we build human pyramids underwater, and we egg beater ourselves up to the surface, create like a spring, and then someone jumps off the top, does a flip, and lands in the water. It's pretty phenomenal to see. And none of it is touching the bottom of the pool. So it's incredible. What ended up happening this day, and something that can happen commonly in our sport, is my teammate slipped and she fell straight on my head. We're not like American football. We don't have any helmets. It's just a little bathing cap between us and others. And so you can imagine a human being falling on your head is a bit of an impact. I was driving home that night. I started to feel really sick. I had a bad headache, and I had a midterm the next day because I was in university, and I was trying to study, and I was trying to read the words, and I knew it was English, but I had no idea what it said. And so the next day I went to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with a concussion. And a lot of people kind of use that as like a good thing, nowadays. Oh, they're fine. They just have a concussion. But I say it's very similar to struggling with your mental health. Like, you look fine, right? I didn't have any cuts or bruises. I wasn't bleeding. I didn't have scars. I didn't have stitches, but my mind was not okay. And the only way to recover from a concussion is like complete rest. And so that ended up making me have to drop out of university for the semester and stop everything in my life. And, I think if anyone has to stop everything in their life and lay in a bed for a month, it's gonna instigate some depressive feelings. And that was really brought up for me. And, the blessing in disguise in that whole journey was the only thing you can do when you're concussed is meditate. And so that kind of started meditation. That was something I wanted to do, but I just didn't have the time, right? I definitely had the time when I was concussed. And it also made me, I was in this state of like, why is this happening to me? Like we all have moments in our life, whether it be through breakups or through financial struggle, through career struggle, where we go like, what did I do to like, what am I cursed? Like, why is this happening? Like, how did this happen? And I was in that state. I was feeling pretty sorry for myself. And I had my concussion over my 21st birthday. It was much different than I thought it would be. And the day after my 21st birthday, I was on the phone with a past teammate of mine who I used to swim with. And she was always a much better athlete than me, but we got along well at the time. And when we were talking, she gets a little Facebook Messenger ping from the assistant national team coach of the Australian synchronized swimming team in our sport. It's a bit of a small world. This coach used to work and know her. And she reached out to her because her dad was Aussie and she had dual citizenship. And she said, any chance, it's 2013, any chance you want to come and try out for the Australian team? We're trying to rebuild the team after the 2012 Olympics. We want to qualify Australia for the 2016 Olympics. And as a friend, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. You got to go for it. I believe in you. I think we do this with our friends. And then we count ourselves out on our own dreams. But luckily, after 30 minutes, she turns around, she looks at me and she goes, well, Danielle, you could do this too. Like, you could do it. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, we all know I was never the best. First, and then secondly, I'm concussed. I'm in Canada. Like, there's like a million reasons why this is so impossible for me. But in that moment, I was starting to grapple with the fact that like, this is an insane opportunity. This is not going to come around twice in a lifetime. And I had this moment where I was, I've always been a bit of an old soul, and I was imagining sitting on my deathbed and looking back at my life and the decisions that I made or didn't make. And I realized that even though I was so afraid of people judging me, so afraid of failing, so afraid of falling on my face and people like, who does she think that she is? I was more afraid of regret. I was more afraid of wondering who I could have been if I was brave enough. Was more afraid of living a life that was small instead of living a life where I chose to lean into fear. And so that moment, that's where the naivety of my 21-year-old self found some piece of courage, and I ran with it. And there's many more parts to the story, but that's kind of the journey that led me to becoming an Olympian.
Oh my goodness, because I don't know about you, but I've known and been able to talk to past Olympians who kind of tell you, like, if you don't train from little, like, you're not going to make it. Is it not the same for synchronized swimming, or is it still true?
Yeah, well, to be fair, at this time I was 21. I had been in the sport since I was 8. And I didn't really, so like what, that's like plus 12 years at least that I had been doing it. So like my skill level and my knowledge was there, but my natural talent wasn't as high. The thing that we don't realize about Olympic Games as well is that the Olympics is very worldwide focus. So the focus of the Olympics is to have the whole, Earth come together. And so every single sport has different qualifications, and they want to get every continent in. So that's why there's 5 Olympic rings. The 5 rings represent the continents. We all know there's 7 continents, but in the Olympics, North and South America are one continent. Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand, and all the islands, is another continent. And so the kind of loophole that Australia has is, if you think of Australia and all the islands there versus Europe, we have less people to compete against for our continental spot. And so that leads to this level of, being able to, like, moved to Australia, Australia had less people to compete against to be able to qualify. So there was still synchronized swimmers and people I competed against who were a million times better than me. But I found through this opportunity that came up, there was kind of like this loophole for me I still worked incredibly hard. I still sacrificed so much. I still absolutely feel that I am an Olympian, but I had the opportunity to compete for another country. And a lot of Olympians do this as well. You'll see, especially in swimming, like you'll see some kid that has trained and like lived their whole life in the US, but they have a parent that is like from the Bahamas or from Aruba, and so then they'll go to the Olympics for Aruba or from whichever country that is. And so it kind of like gives us people access to the Olympics in different avenues. And I think it's also a beautiful expression of like, we live in such a melting pot world, right? So many of us are all of us are from somewhere else. And so it kind of gives people this aspect for all these multicultural people that exist to, represent different countries.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's awesome, because I think that was the Olympics ever on your radar as a young child? Let me ask you that first.
No, like it was on my radar because I'm obsessed with it. Like I love the Olympics. I'm like the person that's like, I know when all the Olympics are. I like block off 2 weeks of my life. I watch everything. Like I am that person. I was the girl even before I ever went that I would like cry watching the Olympics because I was like, this is so amazing. These athletes have done so much. And I also had the unique perspective. I'm from Vancouver, and we had the Olympics in 2010, which was the year that I graduated. So that was the Winter Olympics, which isn't as big, but I had this experience of like having the Olympics in my hometown. And that was, if you ever get to go to an Olympics, like you don't even need to go to events, but just being in the city is so magical because there's so much cool stuff going on.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. So it was never on the radar. So now you're actually getting to go because you love the Olympics. What does that feel like? Can you describe what it feels like when you say yes to the opportunity and now here you are, you're going?
Yeah, so there was a lot of hurdles for me to still get through. I had to move to Australia. I had to actually make the team. And so that took a lot of work. And then there's multiple qualification processes as well through it. So you have to qualify for each competition and you have to qualify the country and then you have to qualify for the Olympic team. And so there's a lot of hurdles that I had to jump through. And there's a lot of work that I put in as well. So by the time that I ended up getting to the Olympic Games, like I was an athlete. As synchronized swimmers, we trained incredibly hard. We would swim in the water 6 hours a day, sometimes 2, 3, 4 hours on land, often 5 to 6 days a week. And so we train more than most athletes. And so I had put the work in, and I also always make sure I mention this, like I worked on my mind, right? I wasn't the most talented, but I realized if I wanted to go after this, I was going to have to do something that was different than other people. And even though I might not be naturally flexible, I might not have the natural body type of a synchronized swimmer, I am self-aware and I am hardworking and I have a good work ethic and I'm willing to improve. That got me improving at such a rapid rate once I put myself in the right environment and I moved across the world and I was with them. So when I first went to my first training camp on the Australian team, I was the bottom and I sucked. But by the time I qualified for the Olympics, on my team, I was fourth. And I'm so proud of that because my growth came at a rapid rate from my desire to improve and my desire to be like self-aware and self-critical in a positive way. So that by the time that it all happened and we ended up qualifying, it honestly felt like surreal. I felt like I was like living in a pinch me moment and living in a place that was like, I felt overwhelming gratitude because it was something that I never expected myself to do. And that also led, I had to work through a lot of guilt. I had a wonderful opportunity that not everyone has. And there's so many different people in the world. And there's so many athletes that never achieved their Olympic dreams. And that's heartbreaking. But then I realized like guilt is not a helpful emotion unless you do something with it. There are so many parts to my story that are so much bigger than me, right? And then I realized that if I'm going to do this and if I'm going to go after this, it gets to be bigger than me. I get to share my story. I get to inspire other women. I get to inspire other girls. And it's not to just go to the Olympics. It's to understand all the process and the like satisfaction that comes from leaning into difficult things, taking risks, going after something bold, falling on your face and getting up again, going after something that is your dream, and then realizing the whole point of it was who you became in the process. And so I realized that I had to use all of that as well to fuel this, like, the shift of this guilt into like purpose. And so when I was there, I just allowed myself to like take it all in and be present and take lots of photos and write in my journal all the time and cry my eyes out of like pride and gratitude. I still have moments when I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. That's so crazy. But I always share that as like, I was a nobody and I made it to the Olympics. Like, just imagine what we can all do. I'm not saying it happens easily, but it can happen for all of us. But we have to have this concept in our mind of belief, radical action, and like putting effort into making it happen.
Yes, all of that. All out. Yes. So tell me, let's go back into that mind work that you had to do, because I'm sure that because you were not the greatest, you suffered from some imposter syndrome, some limiting beliefs. How did you start to, first, how did you recognize, but then how did you start to kind of work your mind? Like, I'm going to do this.
One of the powerful things that I witnessed throughout many years of doing my sport is that it is a more performance-based sport, similar to gymnastics, right? You still have to have incredible skill, but there is a level of performance to it. And I think the same goes with like any sports as well, that it's not like a game, right? You get like one chance to do it, even like 100-meter sprint and stuff like that. And so in our sport, what I realized is over many years is if I go up there and I let myself look as unconfident as I feel as a young girl, because I was not a confident young girl. I had a lot of self-conscious feelings towards myself and my body. Then I look like an idiot. Like, if I walk up there and I like don't give it my best and I'm just like this, like you look silly, right? But if you go and you give it everything that you got, and I would see this in so many different competitions, you have respect for that person because they're giving it everything. And then also they shine more. They are like more beautiful to watch. I think we even see this in like little kid dancing videos that like go viral. You know how there's like those videos and there's always like that one kid that is just like the superstar, right? Yeah. They don't even need to be that talented, but you're just like, they're going for it. And so I started to realize that, because even though in my essence at the time, I was not a confident person, I still struggled deeply with lack of self-worth, lack of self-belief, lack of feeling good enough. I took on this attitude that when I'm training, some people don't like this statement, but I think it's really powerful. I'm going to fake it till I make it. And so what I mean by that is like, I'm going to pretend to be the woman that I know that I can be at certain times, so that I come out as confident, I come out as powerful, I come out as her. And even though internally I don't feel like that, I'm going to act as her. And the cool thing about that process, and I'm not saying about being fake or being inauthentic, the cool thing about that process is when you embody a future version of yourself, a confident version of yourself, so often you end up becoming that version of yourself even more. Yeah. Right? Like, I have spoken on stages and talked to people, and I was a young kid that was shy. Like, I couldn't pick up the phone and talk to someone. I wouldn't speak. Like, it's hilarious that I'm doing this work now. But before I go on stage, before I'd swim, I would do the superhero pose, hands on my hips, feet apart, chest up, chin up. I'm like, I'm powerful. I'm capable. I got this. I'm going to be her today. I'm not going to be little Danielle that's 5 years old and scared. I'm going to be the big Danielle that's powerful and confident. I'd walk out as her, and boom, she would go and create it. And it's kind of like creating this archetype for myself that helps me embody like what I wanted to live and what I wanted to create, who I wanted to be. And I think we can do this in like so many different levels of our life. Like, you might not be in like a performance-based thing, but like, you have to go to that meeting that scares the heck out of you, or go talk to that person. Like, we can find that in us. And then also another level of that was like being a self-aware human being, I think is undervalued. Like, so what that means is being able to ask myself hard questions and give myself hard answers and realize that I do not know everything. Like, I'm not the smartest person in the room, right? And I can always grow and I can always learn from somebody. And we see this in life and we see this in sport. People that they think that they know everything end up in the long term falling flat on their face. That's the biggest crutch you can have in life. Like, we are all in this human experience just learning, right? And you get to be confident, but you still get to take on feedback. And that feedback doesn't mean that you're not a worthy human being. It doesn't mean that you're not enough. It just means that you're someone that wants to grow. And so being able to be really self-aware and distinguishing the difference between me as an athlete wants to improve, but me as a human is worthy. And I have to come back to that was a really powerful process for me to conceptualize.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I love that. And I love that I am her. I am her. So be her. Yeah. I think there's got to be a better statement than fake it till you make it, because it's almost like connecting with who you know you can be.
Yeah.
But we oftentimes hold our own selves back. It was a long time for me trying to find my dream. And I say it like this, because my dream was with me the entire time, but it took someone else on a stage to say, fear is holding you back, or this is holding you back. And it was like, wait a minute, I've been waiting for piles of money to become someone. And all it really takes is breaking away from that fear. Were there ever times in your journey to the Olympics that it seemed like it might not happen? Like, maybe you weren't doing so well, or you were hitting some sort of blocker that was taking you and making you think oh, maybe I'm not meant for this.
Yeah, so many times. Oh my gosh. Not only from the fact that we had the hurdle as well, that I wasn't a paid athlete. I had to as well work to make a living to be able to live. And, a lot of people think, oh, all athletes are paid and wealthy and rich. That's not necessarily true. There's a lot of people at the top that are, but a lot of Olympians that you see are doing it for the pride of their country and the glory of their sport. A lot of Olympians are broke, and that sucks. The amount of people at Olympians I talked to, and they got, we were doing this Olympic parade, and this is in Australia. So we're in the Opera House underneath the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And I'm standing in a line of there's maybe 50 to 100 of us. And the amount of Olympians that looked around and were like, yeah, I don't have a job. I don't have any money. I have nowhere to go after this. That was the majority statement. So that was a huge challenge in the whole journey, the financial struggle of having to figure that out. And then there was days where I had to have my coin tin and open it up and get all the coins and go to the store and buy dinner with, $10, $15 and make it work. And so that was one really big hard part. And then the other part was just the literal physical exhaustion that comes from being an athlete and having to work. I remember one time, it was a year and a half before the Olympics, and I came home, and at this time I was working in the bar till 1 a.m. because I was a bartender, and I'd have to walk home because I didn't have a car at the time, walk home, which was 15-minute walk. But then I had training at 5:30 in the morning. And so I'd have to wake up at 5 a.m. and I would actually run to the pool, because if I got to sleep more, I got to have another 15 minutes of sleep. So I would jog there, which was up a hill, and then I'd train for 5 hours. And so there was times where I remember I came home and I looked at my partner at the time, and I just started crying because I was I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. This is so hard. And at the time, I remember I was a year and a half away from the Olympics. And in my mind, I was I'm going to be this tired for another year and a half. It's going to be this hard for another year and a half. And he was just lovely. He just was I'm so sorry. I get it. I feel you. And I just let myself feel all those things. And I think we all have those brick wall moments where it's just oh, this is so freaking hard. I don't know how I can go any further. And I'm so glad that I just let myself cry it out, and feel it many times, cried it out, because we need to, because usually what happens then is we find another level inside of us, right? We have to express the emotion that I'm pissed off. This is not working for me. I'm so angry. Why is it so hard? Let yourself feel that, process that. And then on the other side, if it's really what you want to do, you find another level of strength inside of you. You find another like access point. And so that's, you know, what I had to find and do. And then there was times too where like I wasn't performing as well and I'd get taken off. Like, so what happens is it's similar in a lot of sports. You have a bigger squad than the people that actually compete, whether it be like soccer or something like synchronized swimming. And so I'd be taken off like the main people that was like in the squad that was competing. And I was given no explanation for that. And I just had to work on my way back up to like getting on the team again. Oh, and like, wow. That's so stressful because again, you have this moment of like, oh my gosh, like, you know, people are starting to believe in me. I've moved across the world. My family's starting to be like, oh my God, maybe she's actually going to do this. And then you're off the team for that competition or for whatever. And you have to work your way back up and you have to prove yourself to get there. And like, so like just the level of like daily physical stress and mental stress and financial stress that I had to face was like so huge that, you know, in hindsight, like I'm so proud that I did it, but like, oh my God, it was hard. And I'm also glad that I didn't know how hard it was going to be because I don't know if I would have done it if I knew how hard it was going to be. Maybe I would have, I don't know. But I think that that's like a beautiful thing when we go after our dreams. Like we don't want to see the whole journey. We don't want to have the 25 steps that we're going to get us there because sometimes we just have enough strength and enough personal willpower to get to the next point. And then we find the courage and we find the strength to take the next step and then the next step and the next step. But let me tell you, when you get to the other side, and when I was standing up at Olympic stage and I had competed and I was officially an Olympian, I was so proud of who I became, the journey that I went through, the hardship that I went through, the challenges that I faced, the people that I met, because no inspirational story comes without hardship. You never want to watch a movie or read a book that says she dreamed it and then she did it. Boom, easy. Like that's not relatable. That's not life, right? Like if you want to do something bold in your life, if you want to do something big, you're going to have a dream and then you're going to face hardship and then you're going to overcome it and then you're going to get there. But when you get there, it's going to feel 1 million times better because of all the hard things that you overcame in the journey. And I think sometimes when we go on these paths, we like get naive or forget the fact that like there's going to be hard things, or we feel like it's a personal vendetta from life. Like I felt like with my concussion, like life hates me. No, life doesn't hate you. Life is trying to make you be the greatest version of yourself so you can become her, to create that life, to have that dream, to build that success, to hit that goal, whatever it may be. And when you realize it's not personal and you're just going to have to get over it and keep going, then you have so much more resilience on this path. I think I went on a total tangent, but I hope I answered your question.
It was a great tangent because it was so true. So true, because this is the stuff that holds us back from our dreams. I hear a lot of people say things like, well, maybe I'm just cursed. I used to say that. I'm just cursed. My family line is cursed. My family used to say that. Oh, what is it? There's like a saying that goes along with having like a lineage that is cursed. And so you start to hear that and you're being told that and you believe that. And then when you realize that if you just go through the tears, go through it, and you come to the other side and you can be 21, or how old were you when you were an Olympian then? Were you 21?
I was almost 24.
Okay, 24 years old, you can be an Olympian from just a regular girl. Because some people go, well, you're an Olympian because you were just born under that magical star.
Yeah.
Because you're like, Danielle.
No, not at all. And that's why I like always, I'm such an advocate of like my story as like a symbol for everyone's life. Right? Yeah. Because we think that, okay, yes, there's some people that are born into more privilege and do have more advantage, right? And do have more access. However, there's hardships that every one of us faces that, you know, whatever you have been through in life, wherever you have been born in life, whatever family you've been brought into. And this is always humbling for me. There's people that have been in shittier situations that have done better than you. Yeah. And so like, why not you? Why not you? There's always a story of someone who has been in a harder place that has done something more magical. So I bet you in wherever you are right now, you could do what you want to do in your life, whatever that looks like for you. And it doesn't have to look like what it looks like for me. And we have to get ourselves out of this like victim mindset that, oh, I'm cursed, I'm just not enough, right? You know, all of that stuff, because first of all, it's powerful. Like I love to talk about the duality of it, because like, I'm so glad that my limiting belief my whole life was I'm not enough, because luckily there's a stubborn girl inside of me that's like, I'm going to prove that voice wrong. And so what you got to do is realize how you give power to that voice, because you can give the power to that voice to take you down, and it will take you and everything in your life down with you. Or you can give power to that voice to prove it wrong. And I realized I want to prove it wrong. I want to spend my life proving that voice wrong. So I do everything in my power to not believe that it's true. And I think sometimes people give too much power to that voice, whatever it is. For women, it's I'm not enough, I'm not valued, I'm not intelligent enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not worthy, whatever it is for you. How are you letting that feed your life?
That's the thing.
Yeah. I don't have the proper body, my metabolism sucks. Like, I'm not beautiful enough. Like, I don't have the right skin color. You know, I'm not wealthy, whatever it be. Like, okay, it's okay that you feel that. We all feel that. Every single human being has a struggle, but how are you going to use that in your life?
Yes. Yes. Do you believe in too old?
No.
When it
comes to change? No. I just found this lady, recently on, I can't remember what her name is. But she has shared this like beautiful big Instagram account about how at 52 years old, she went back to dance because she wanted to be a Broadway star. And now at 56, she's performing in Chicago, on Broadway, in New York City at 56 years old. And I'm just like, yes. Who cares? Like, it's only the limit that you put on it. And of course, again, she's worked really hard, right? It's something that I think she did when she was younger, and she gave up on her dream and then she came back. But there is no limit to like our age. And if anything, like the amount of inspiration that you give people when you do it, when you are more wise in your life, is so much more beautiful. When I went to the Olympics, there was a woman there who was a first-time Olympian at 60 years old, and she was an equestrian athlete. And it was her first Olympics, and she achieved her dream at 60 years old. You know, you never know. And also, you never know what it's going to look like, right? The amount of people that I was on a podcast last week, and I was speaking to this lady who said to me she always wanted to go to the Olympics. I think her sport was equestrian. But what's happened is she actually got a job with the International Olympic Committee, and she's going to the Paris Olympics as a broadcaster. And so we were having a laugh where she was like, I should have been more specific, because she's like, I actually am achieving my dream. It just looks totally different than I thought. And that's sometimes what happens too, right? Like, it might not come in how you thought it would, but the amount of like people that achieve their Olympic dream by becoming coaches, or by becoming physios or doctors that support athletes, or sports psychologists or broadcasters, they said they want to go to the Olympics. They're still going, right? It just looks different. So I think sometimes we have to, also let go of the control of what we think our dream is going to look like. I never would have expected I would compete for Australia ever, but I'm so glad that I did. And through that, through me moving to Australia and taking that leap, I ended up meeting my husband, which is like a whole nother beautiful story, right? So it's like, I also like to talk about the ripple effect of your bold, brave choices. There's so much bigger than that one thing. Because yes, there's the intention A of like, okay, I'm going to go after my dream and do this thing and be courageous. But just you wait to the beautiful people that you meet, the experiences that you have. You have no idea how by you being courageous and going after that thing, you might meet someone else that changes your life. that becomes your soulmate, that you end up having kids with, that you end up being your best friend, that ends up connecting with someone who's going to like help you get to your dream. You have no idea the ripple effect that your bravery has. And I think that that's such a beautiful aspect of it too, because there's the main thing, and then there's the 1,000 other beautiful things that come as part of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God, that's amazing. Your story is amazing. So tell me what you have done with your experience. What else has evolved from coming from the Olympics? Because some people might be afraid, okay, if I achieve an Olympic dream, then is life just going to mean nothing from there on out?
You like don't want to be like the person that's still talking about their high school glory days, you know, that was like, their peak in life. I had this moment where I was on the other side of the Olympics, and when I don't know if it was like an intuition or a choice. It was probably both. But I remember I said to my partner at the time, I was like, this is the bottom of my mountain, not the top. I said that I'm not at the peak. I'm just starting my journey. And that choice as well. And again, everyone's journey is different, right? For some people that might be enough and they want to go and live their life. And this is just my experience, because I never want to invalidate. Everyone's goals are so beautiful. It's whatever it means to you. But for me, I was like, this is the bottom of my mountain. I have no idea what's next, but I'm going to keep climbing. And so that led me in my sport. I continued to swim, which I never imagined. I went to 2 more world championships. In 2019, I competed with the Australia's first mixed duet, which is a male and female duet, and got to make history in my sport. I decided to put my story into a book and write my story, which is called The Unlikely Olympian. And then I had this another fork in the road journey where I was going to try out for the 2020 Olympics, or I was going to go on this other path. I had no idea what it was, but I just knew that I wanted to help people. And I walked away from the second Olympics and was like, you know what? I want to help people. I have no idea how to do that, but I'm just going to start. And so that started with my book. And then that led into, the work that I do with my clients now, through building my social media and creating my podcast and creating programs and workshops and now retreats that I run with my husband to empower women, because I realized that at the core of it, I wanted to share my story, but I also wanted to understand what other women were going through, what we all go through. That's the common theme that's holding us back, because I believe as women that we are so incredible and we can change the world, but we can't do that if we're beating ourselves up, if we're telling ourselves we're not enough, if we're too obsessed about our body size and our image, if we're too obsessed about what we look like, if we are unkind to ourselves, we don't have the capacity to do the good things that we absolutely can do to change this world. And so therefore we need to change that narrative for women. And I wanted to be a small part in doing that for this world. So that led me into the work that I do now.
Oh my gosh, you inspire me that the world is changing for the better, because there are times where I'm like, is it really changing? Am I alone out here?
I know. There's definitely moments where depending on what you get on your algorithm, you're like, oh God. No, but there are so many good people.
And human to human, I'm like, what is going on? Where are my people at? And then I meet and align with someone like you who has a similar story, but yours is maybe the extraordinary. But it gives people like myself who are late in life starters that hope that if I keep this focused on me being enough, I can do those big dreams. Because a lot of times we talk ourselves right out of them.
We think that it's not important enough. It doesn't matter. We think that who am I to do this? Everyone's going to judge me. Another beautiful story that I love from a lady that I met in my coaching journey is, her name's Belinda. She is from New Zealand. At 67 years, no, Yeah. At 59 years old, she went and she did what she always wanted to do, and she became a sex coach. And she got her sex coaching certification. And I've had her in my programs just to talk. Sexual empowerment is a huge part of being a woman as well. And I got her in my programs to share with the women all of her knowledge and all of her wisdom. And that this is when she was 65 years old, and she was doing a podcast, and she was like putting herself out there and coaching women around the world. And she started at 59. And I'm like, that's amazing. And just like the wisdom that she had to share, was so much more powerful because she had lived a whole life. She had grown children that are my age. Like, she was even more inspirational because of like the life that she had lived and how she could weave that into her story. And I just love the fact that she was like 65 years old. She's like, yeah, I like, she had like her 10-year career plan, like age didn't stop her. Like, why would it, So I think that it's like, it's only like it is. And like, I also understand that I have the perspective, like I'm 31. And so I have that's not a limiter that I face, but I am such a champion of people doing it at any age. And ultimately the only person judging you is yourself, because, what I realized in this journey too, is like, people that aren't doing anything with their life and don't like themselves are going to tear you down. And all the people that are doing it, first of all, they don't have time to think about what you're doing. And if they do, they're going to cheer you on. They're not going to tear you down. And so if anyone tears you down, it's either yourself or people that are unhappy with themselves. And so we have to turn down the volume on those people's noise, turn up on the volume on people that will cheer us on, and like come together in communities that inspire each other.
100%. Thank you so much for saying that, because I was like, how do I lead into that? And you did it on your own naturally. Because yes, you're right. As women, we need to have more faith in ourselves. And there's men out there who should be able to share their stories of perseverance and getting through things, because I think we do kind of forget about them. They are told that they aren't man enough if they talk about whatever they've been through. But you're a shining testament to doing the work inside your mind and really just setting that this is the bottom of my mountain, this is the top of my mountain, and I'm not going to let anything stop me. I love it. I love that you're helping other people. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things you have. So your book, talk about your book title. Where do we find it? All the things.
Yeah. So it's called The Unlikely Olympian, which is kind of, now you guys get the gist of the story, but I go into way more detail. Like, I know sometimes I gloss over it because it is a whole story that can be put in a book. And I talk about like all the ups and downs, the in-betweens, and all the challenges that I faced and the things that I learned in the process. You can find that on Amazon actually, and order it on Amazon, so anyone in the world can get it. And then the work that I do now as well, mostly is online with women. I share a lot of it on Instagram under the Danielle Reedy. And I run workshops, I run programs, and I run retreats around mindset and around feminine and female empowerment. And, really rewiring all that bullshit in our mind that's telling us that we're not enough, so that we can step into our personal power and do the stuff that we need to do. And then that naturally led into running retreats. Part of my journey is I was living in Perth when I met my husband. He's my boyfriend at the time, and we had this dream to go after our next dream together to help people. He has his own really beautiful, unique story. And we are like, we want to move to Bali. To give a bit of perspective, in Perth, Bali's like a 3-hour flight that's like really cheap to get there. So, compared to North America, it's kind of like going to Mexico. Like if you're going to Tijuana, if you live in LA, like it's not that hard. And so we're like, we're going to move to Bali. But like, it didn't seem as scary because we could just like come back on the weekend if we needed. And this was at the end of 2019. We all know what happened in 2020, and the world kind of shut down and led to us living there for a year, and then we ended up moving back to Canada. But, for years, our clients were asking us, can you run a retreat in Bali? Like, we want to, meet in person in Bali. And so we ended up doing that for the first time last year. In the past 13 months, we've run 3 retreats, with women from all over the world, and brought them, on just a journey to first of all, to a beautiful place. And then where we spend 8 days and 7 nights together in this incredible location, and really physically work on getting them to let go of that shit that's not serving them so that they can find that personal power.
Oh my gosh, yes. How do people connect with you to get into your program or to get connected into a retreat if they want?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me is probably on Instagram under the Danielle Reedy. I share a lot of the stuff on there. You can also join the waitlist for our retreat, or send me a message or send me an email through that if you're interested in any of the work that I do. And then I do something like every couple months. I have a big program coming up called Reclamation, all around feminine empowerment. But that would be the best way to reach out.
Awesome. Perfect. And then let's talk about your podcast. What's it called? Where do people find it? And let's talk about what it's about.
Yeah, so it's called the Beautiful Souls Podcast. That's the reasoning for that is because I would always get on calls and I'd call my clients beautiful souls. And I started that a few years ago, and it's just been a really beautiful outlet. I think the downfall of social media is like sometimes it's really hard to articulate yourself in 60-second reels or 15 seconds or whatever it might be. And so it's just kind of a platform for longer form conversation. I share a lot about mindset, I talk about like manifestation and energy and intuition, and going after our dreams. And I also bring guests on sometimes as well and speak about the things that they have to add to the world, whether it be things like numerology or astrocartography. I just released one today around spinal energetics and talk about other people's journeys and what they're doing. And it's just, I love podcasting as a platform. Just like, I'm like the type of person that like, I don't, like if we're going to have a conversation, like, I don't want to know like how you're doing, but like, tell me your deepest, darkest wounds and like, let's get deep together. And so like, that's kind of what podcasting is. And that's like my personal joy. So I feel like it's like one of the best outlets to share your thoughts and your feelings about life, but also like connect with other people too.
100%. And for me too, I think it's a great marketing tool. If you're somebody who's starting a business and you want to get your name out there or let people know about who you are, because
100%.
A lot of times we just connect through our stories and where we've been and where we've come from. So I think that's awesome. I love it. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with listeners about achieving their dreams, or, maybe even about what it means to be an average girl doing amazing, huge things?
I think that we have this perception. I've noticed a lot of women say this to me, and this used to be myself, where we think like everyone else has it figured out, or we think that like everyone else doesn't have hard things going on in their life, or everyone else is like, never would understand what they're going through. And what I've learned through doing women's work over the past 5 years and like being that person that's doing the work myself is we are so much more alike than different. And every woman, every person I have ever met has had a struggle in some way, shape, or form that they have overcome. And nobody on this earth like comes in that I know of that doesn't have something that they've had to overcome. And in that actually makes us way more alike than different. And so the reason that I say that is because I think some people stop themselves from going after things because they go, oh, well, she has it figured out, or like, she doesn't struggle with this. Like, or I've had people say, well, Danielle, you don't know because this happened in my life. And I was like, I get that. I get that this has happened in your life, but also why not you? Why not use that? And I have heard so many stories from so many different women. And when we like separate ourselves from each other, we create more segregation and more blockages to our dreams and our desires. But when we realize that like the reason someone inspires you is because there is something that you have inside of you that's inside of them. Like if I inspire you, if Nicole inspires you, it's because there's something in her or in us that exists in you. So if I can do it, you can do it. And there's a reason that we're showing up in your world, because we are proof that it is possible for you. And I think that if we use each other as women as inspiration to go after our dreams, because she's doing it so I can, instead of, well, she's doing it so I can't, like that's how we make this world a better place.
Oh my God. And light each other's flame.
Yeah. Yes. Right.
Flame. Don't extinguish each other's flame. Let's get together and light each other's flame.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Danielle, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being on my show. I appreciate you. And I want to know, because this is who I am. And if you've been a guest on my show and you've written a book, I always ask, how do I get a signed copy of your book?
Oh, how do we? You have to reach out to me, actually. I think I'm running out. I need to order more. You have to reach. I have actually sent out signed copies, but if you want one, you can reach out to me.
Yes.
And I sent them around the world. Before, you just have to cover, the person has to cover shipping. Send them to like UK and Europe and all that stuff. But I'm more than happy to.
Yes. Do you have an email address they can send that request?
Yeah. If you go, it could be hello@Danielle Kettlewell, which is kind of confusing because that's my maiden name, like a kettle and a well.com. I'm in the process of changing everything over. But if you send me a message on my Facebook page or on my Instagram, or you find my website as well and you send me a message on there, then we can get that organized.
Awesome. That's good for me and anyone else who is a geek like that, but that is who I am. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.